For several years, I can't find anything in clothing stores. Every time I go there, I think like, seriously, who's gonna wear that?
Not to mention the quality and the prices. Besides, it's just ridiculous how similar the items are. It seems that there are few trends and every company blindly produces them with minimal additions. As a result, we see crowds of young people dressed almost identical.
One day I became so indignant that I have decided to make a research about how fashion is actually formed, who sets the trends, and why everything is similar. The theme appeared to be very interesting and deep, although I have worked as a model myself for some time. I never asked myself how fashion actually works. And it works in a way that affects all of us and can tell a lot about our society.
In my imagination, it was always like this. The mass market and its biggest players, together with famous fashion designers, form our taste by exposing specific clothes, making advertisements, paying influencers to wear their items so that we see what people around wear and sort of get used to it and then also find it beautiful. But when I started to dive deep into the topic, I was surprised to learn that everything is vice versa.
I've listened to several fashion experts, and here's what I learned. Mass market has two main sources of inspiration. The first source is us.
Clothing manufacturers, of course, want to have maximum profit, #capitalism, so they are interested in offering those goods that we would buy.
In fact, capitalists are constantly trying to guess what we need.
There are actually agencies that collect the data and analyze the social situation, mood, needs, and preferences of population.
As you understand, it's not that hard to do with all the social media, Google, and smartphone data. And brands pay a lot of money for the info. The second source is haute couture, or high fashion.
So it's indeed fashion houses and world-class designers, specifically what they show on fashion shows. Right after Fashion Week, the designers and new ideas are drawn to design departments of well-known, affordable for many brands like H&M, Zara, C&A. And there they are preceded and refined, made simpler, cheaper, easier to produce.
Anyway, what is this haute couture at all? I mean, you have probably seen these awkward costumes when you think like shocking, ugly, and definitely not applicable to life. So, why? You will be surprised, but appearing of haute couture was actually an answer to democratization of fashion. The elite wanted to distance from the crowd.
If you think about it, indeed, previously society was different. People were not equal, There were peasants who worked and aristocracy who surrounded the king. The latter naturally had to be different, preferably as much as possible, and they did everything to show how important and influential they were. Fashion trends at court were usually set by the royal family or famous tailors. As people became equal in rights and the gap between the nobility and ordinary workers became smaller, the significant differences in clothing also gradually erased.
But society remains financially polarized.
It's just that other people, usually celebrities, have wealth today. Still, they want to stand out of the crowd, and haute couture serves this purpose well. Apart from that, we should look at fashion as modern art. It's eternal search and experimenting, like art. It reflects the world through the prism of a designer.
We can say that fashion is an experiment that becomes a norm.
For example, we look at Yves Saint Laurent works today and find them beautiful and not particularly unusual. But in 60s, he shocked the industry with his dresses and pantsuits. They were not understood by many and provoke a lot of hate because he was experimenting. It was simply not habitual.
Okay, but it's important to understand where the haute couture designers get their ideas from.
According to interviews of fashion designers and my own experience, like all other designers from nature, but most importantly from art in all its forms. Paintings, books, photography, films, architecture. And what is art if not a product of a human, and therefore society?
I mean, it's a social construct The ideas are not appearing out of nowhere. We share experience, thoughts, visions, and out of these appear new ideas. We can even say that the ideas are quite similar, rather expressed in different ways.
Another huge source of inspiration for high fashion are people on the street, who intentionally or not intentionally dress up in authentic and unconventional way.
I was in Paris 2 weeks ago and I understood what it is about. People there have their own style. They experiment with outfits, mix items, sometimes strange, but sometimes with excellent taste. They use not only mass market, but also small local designers and a lot of second-hand. So it's a mix of clothes from different decades. The styles that designers notice and like are brought to their offices. So it turns out that fashion is just a reflection of what is happening in society. And if we look into history, we will be convinced of this.
Remember the costumes of 16th, 19th centuries. Now imagine how expensive it is, the fabric, decoration, hiring a tailor. Then imagine how difficult it was to move in it. You definitely are unable to do any work in it, only talking, walking, eating and sitting in a carriage. At the same time, workers and peasants wore movement-free and simple clothes, not only because they couldn't allow themselves to spend so much time and money for that, but also because they had to work obviously, so they needed the freedom of movement.
So we see that clothes limits our movements to the amount that a person needs. A more striking example of this is women's clothing in retrospect.
During a very long time, society dictated women to wear extremely uncomfortable dresses. The skirts were so long, fluffy and heavy it was hard to move. The corsets tightened the body so hard that it was difficult to breathe. It all showed that a woman is powerless and incapable of independent existence without men or servants. According to the Smithsonian Magazine, in the mid-1800s in America, women often wore skirts weighing more than 15 pounds or 7 kilograms. And it was relevant not only for rich. All women were supposed to wear long dresses or skirts. And now remember what rights women possessed?
If you start thinking about it, in every culture there was a way to restrict females.
In China, there were tight dresses and feet were locked from childhood in small shoes, all that for women to make small steps demonstrating her obedience.
Only in 20th century women started to wear more or less comfortable clothes and pants.
This completely coincides with the development of feminism and women's emancipation, as women demanded better mobility for being independent. This was facilitated by fashion designers like Coco Chanel, who often wore trousers herself and started to create a collection of women's riding pants. Paul Poiret also introduced trousers in 1911 as part of his effort to rethink and liberate Western women's fashion.
We may notice that the first steps in this direction were made in France, where the first revolution took place,
leading to the destruction of the old orders with the famous slogan "Freedom, Equality, Fraternity." Hollywood stars like Katharine Hepburn and Marlene Dietrich also contributed significantly, appearing at the premieres of their movies in pantsuits.
This caused an unprecedented uproar and a surge in public condemnation.
Of course, this evolution of fashion reflected the industrialization of society, when women started working actively. What else contributed to these trends? Wars, oddly enough, as it was during the time when women in the back were involved in producing ammunition and needed a comfortable workwear.
By the way, many types of textiles and clothes were first invented for military industry.
Later, when the producing of the materials was not so expensive, it became available to publicity. And now we have waterproof, breathable and light jackets, thermal underwear and a lot more. Back to history, the hippie revolution of the 1970s was a significant turning point in women's clothing, as it marked the first time that women began to wear shorts and jeans in public.
Since that time, the popularity of pants in women's wardrobes significantly increased. They have become very common and stopped raising questions. However, as you understand, the revolution was not about the pants, but rather about the freedom that women have gained. Well, not only women, men too.
Look at these new dandies. No more suits and classic shirts. It is perhaps this period that we can start talking about fashion as we know it today.
So we made sure that clothes mirror social situation.
There were many more turns of fashion. Literally for each decade we can recall its own specific trends.
But what about today?
For example, these Kanye West tracksuits, these shapeless bags that everyone dresses in. Add sneakers to that and be happy.
And indeed, if you think about it, maximum freedom has been achieved. The movements are not restricted at all, it's warm and cozy. One of the reasons of popularity of such clothing is the lack of time, and you need time to dress extraordinary and authentic.
Besides, we spend more and more time at home, work more and more at the computer. We worry less about what impression we will make on others and accept ourselves more, which means we become tolerant to others too.
This was also greatly influenced by the coronavirus, when we didn't go out anywhere and many people switched to home office. Anyway, have you noticed that we go out less and less? I mean, restaurants, events. I don't even know where to dress up anymore. So why should I buy some uncomfortable and unusual clothes when I sit all the time at home? Maybe it's due to the fact that I have moved to a German village and don't visit cities anymore. Tell me, is that the same for you? But at the same time, I remember the iconic image of a gorgeous woman that still exists today.
She wears high heels, a tight dress, beautifully styled hair, makeup. Every man wants a woman like that by his side, and every girl wants to be like that. It's also associated with wealth, and for a good reason.
Heels, tight dress or skirt, and what can you do in that outfit? Not even mentioning that it took several hours to prepare yourself.
Only jump in taxi, wait for your gorgeous partner to open a car door, and give you a hand and enjoy a glass of champagne, discussing late works of Monet.
That's not an outfit applicable to a working woman, except on weekends when you visit restaurant or theater. I mean, it literally reflects wealth and the possibility not to work and earn your bread like other people. And it's demonstrated exactly through limiting your movements. I find it really amusing. One more aspect should be regarded when we speak about today's fashion. I wondered why everything in clothing stores is similar. I listened to some fashion experts and they talk about giant problems in the industry.
Creativity will always be the most important thing for me. It's the drug of the job. But you realize that you cannot produce collections that are not going to make money.
Designers have to work in a hurry to make 4 and more collections per year. So there is not enough space for creativity and research. No wonder they have to copy ideas to manage to do their work in time. It's not a secret that artists steal. All the art sort of copies and rethinks.
But when the time is limited, the level of rethinking lowers.
Moreover, the lifestyle of the heroines in the movie The Devil Wears Prada was not created from scratch. In reality, the situation is similar. This is a very tough industry to work in. Interns work without payment, people work overtime in constant lack of money and resources. That is reality in which the designers live. No wonder it leads to burnouts. The young designers after schools and universities are not ready to work in such conditions. They studied art, beauty, worked on their creativity.
And often all the dreams are shattered by the reality. A part of working conditions in the industry, it's an interesting question in sense of people choosing to dress similar. Since we are social beings, it's important for our psychological health to be a part of a group.
We demonstrate this affiliation including through clothing. Besides, in order to want something, we must first see it on someone. In particular, we are sympathetic to what is familiar.
I personally have not once noticed that when a new trend appears, I don't like it at all. But then I start seeing it on other people and sort of get used to it, and later I find it even beautiful, and as a result I buy the same item.
At the same time, we need clothes to express our individuality and stand out. This is often used by marketing, by the way, when advertisements suggest to express the individuality with the help of a lipstick that at least several million people also use.
To sum up all that has been said, I see it like fashion inspires from streets, people, and way of living. Then it tries to convert it into clothes, and when it's open to public, the crowd decides what trends would stay and what would die. Same with mass market. They make a new collection, trying to guess what the crowd needs. If people buy actively, it stays for some period of time, maybe a month, maybe a year. If not, they just sell the rest and don't produce anymore. I must say that this mini research changed my vision of fashion, and I started to appreciate it more. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found the theme interesting too. Thank you for watching and see you next time!